Hello and welcome back to Harlan is in Danger. I'm your host, Tom, and joining me as always is my good friend and co-host, Mitch. Hi, Mitch.
Hello, I'm also here, and today we are doing the breakdown of the Circle Undone Deluxe box of player cards. So we're going to give our opinions on them in an expeditious way, or as expeditious as you can be, given the fact that it's a lot of cards.
Yeah, and a little peek behind the scenes. We already recorded this video, but my computer decided it hated us, and which is too bad because it was a really good video. You all would have loved it. We made a lot of good points, and they're probably all lost to time. So, too bad.
Maybe we'll recover some.
Maybe. I'm not going to hold my breath though, because we're going fast. We don't want to do this anymore. All right, so starting with the Guardian cards, we have two events, Delay the Inevitable and Interrogate. We have the skill Steadfast, and we have the tarot card Ace of Swords. So starting with Interrogate, this is a tactic and insight event that costs 2. And it's a parlay, choose a humanoid enemy at your location and test Fist 3. This test gets plus X difficulty, where X is the chosen enemy's damage value. If you succeed, discover 1 clue at your location and 1 clue at any other location. This has importantly been tabooed. I don't think you have to do humanoid anymore. It's just an enemy. So.
Really?
I think so. Yeah, I think you can just interrogate.
You can interrogate a snake?
I think so. I think you can now interrogate snakes. It's still not very good. It's still not great. Actually, it would be good at interrogating rats. I'd interrogate some rats. I think the value of the difficulty of the test though is still just too high. 3 plus whatever damage value they have.
Everything deals at least 1 damage, basically. Even rats. So this is a 4 difficulty test to interrogate some rats. I mean, how hard is it to threaten a rat?
I mean, the good news is you get 2 clues out of it, and so it's basically like...
Yeah.
I don't know. Maybe worth it. If you have some like parlay synergies, like Find Clothes, you can make this a difficulty 1 plus the damage value, which is better. But, I don't know. I think still for the cost of 2...
Yeah, if you have Find Clothes... Yeah. Yeah, it's just kind of like you could spend 2 with Scene of the Crime, not have to do a test, and then get the 2 clues off of the location with the enemy. Like, I get that the clues have to come from your location, but like make sure you end your turn on a location with 2 or more clues, which won't be hard if you're a multiplayer. If you're solo, Scene of the Crime still works great. And if there's not 2 clues, you could just spend the 2 resources and get the 1 and not worry about the enemy.
Yeah.
So... yeah, I don't know. It's kind of a bad card, to be perfectly frank with you, but it's not that you can't play it. You could put it in like a Joe deck with Find Clothes and then be like, oh look, I played it for free, and then the difficulty of the test was like 2, so that wasn't hard, and I have my 4 fight or whatever. Yeah. So yeah, it's not horrible. It's not great.
Yeah, I appreciate that there's another option besides Scene of the Crime to get clues in Guardian,
yes.
But I don't ever play it, and I always forget it exists and is a way to get clues in Guardian because it's not very good.
We got cards that one pretty well.
Yeah, I think the next card that I kind of forget exists and I don't play very often because it's not very good is Delay the Inevitable. So to be totally fair, this is like used to be one of my pet cards. I used to love this card. I should read what it does. It costs 2, and it says fast, play during your turn, attached to an investigator at your location under his or her control. As a reaction, when you are dealt damage and or horror, discard Delay the Inevitable and cancel all that damage and or horror just dealt. Forced, when the Mythos phase ends, you must either spend 2 resources or discard Delay the Inevitable. The thing I like about this card is it does save someone from certain death. And I think like it's the first Guardian card that I saw in my collection to be like, holy crap, I can actually help other people. And like made that connection for me. I'd seen other cards that could help other people, but I hadn't really made that connection that I could be playing a more supportive character until like I saw Delay the Inevitable and I was like, wait, if you have like that treachery that deals you 10 damage when you cycle through your deck, I can just put this on you, and then you don't take any damage? Wow. And I did it once, and it felt pretty good, so...
Yeah. Yeah, I've used it as well, and I was actually reasonably surprised at how well it performed. I think I liked it a lot better than I expected to. It's weird in that it only really costs you just the 2 resources. You think it will cost more because of the text, but it doesn't really because you just play it when you need it and it's fast, so you
Yeah.
don't have to really worry about it. But yeah, the card is it's like I just want it to do something different because it's the benefit it gives you outside of dodge is that you can have excuse me, have it around for longer.
Hmm.
And then and it's when you just take any kind of damage, right?
Yeah.
Damage or horror. Yeah, so it can be from any source. So it can be from any source, and then you can be a little bit more flexible with it. But like you're spending like potentially like 3 more resources just to get those benefits, which just feel very minimal. Like you can effectively prioritize your dodge to avoid enemy damage. And then when Mythos hits you with damage, it's like, oh, well, I already prevented some damage earlier, so it's no big deal.
Yeah.
You know,
Exactly.
unless you're doing a scenario that only attacks you through the encounter deck with as opposed to just enemies. But, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. I wish this card had another agility symbol. I think that's actually what would make it see a lot more play
That's
for
fair.
me. Is if it had 2 agility symbols and it could just be a kind of manual dexterity that doesn't like draw you a card when you don't need it
Yeah.
to do its effect. I think I'd play it a lot more. And again, this was a pet card
Yeah.
for me. So, but yeah, it's a little bit
Hmm.
it's a little bit just fine. Or even if it was like a willpower and an agility, right? Like so you could I don't know. I think the fist and agility
I
is
think
just
double icons would be good for it because when you compare with dodge again, dodge has the willpower and the agility.
oh yeah, you're
And so
right.
if you know, if you did this one as double agility icons, then it's like, well, it costs an extra resource, but the icons are better. So you can kind of start weighing
Yeah.
things a little more fairly,
Yeah.
which I don't know, because dodge, and I know I'm talking about that card a lot, but dodge definitely, I stopped putting in decks once my card pool got bigger, and I just realized it's better to kill enemies rather than to prevent attacks. But the card has actually gone up in stock over time for me. There's definitely been a number of instances where I was like, you know what, dodge actually it means I don't have to take the time to heal, so I just prevent it from happening. And I think preventing damage is actually a lot better than
Yeah.
having to take it and then fix that problem later. So it's just hard to know if you need to do that from like looking at the scenario from the start. At
Yeah.
the end of it, you know whether or not you needed it. So it's just kind of a good measure to have. Delay the inevitable just is kind of like I don't know, it's too expensive. It's too expensive.
All right, that's enough then. Enough said. Next, we have Steadfast, which commits for willpower in a combat, and while you have 5 or more remaining health and sanity, it gets an additional willpower in combat, and if you have 10 or more, it gets 2 additional instead. Um, okay.
I like this one.
I'm not gonna beat around. I don't really like this one. Uh, yeah, it's just I don't know. I
Why don't
think
you like it again?
so. Okay, yeah, we already talked about this. So I guess I'm gonna. This is a little bit more subdued of a reaction. I think the first time I said I don't like this, you were like, "Oh, what?" Yeah, yeah. It was very impressive. Like fireworks went off or something. I don't know. The reason I don't like this one is it's one of those cards that you see like I don't normally keep skills in my opening hand because I'm just like this is something that will
Oh,
help me
that's right.
later. This card I will actively keep it in my opening hand if I have it in my deck and not like it because I want skill cards to get me out of bad situations. This rewards me for already being in a good situation.
I see.
Yeah.
That makes sense. Hmm.
Like, and it's
think
okay. Like, I think you
Yeah.
brought up like the Crypt Chill thing. Like, if you want to play an asset and you don't have enough money to play your next asset or something, and then there's Crypt Chills in the set, you can play this as like a protection against Crypt Chill, which I get. But
Oh yeah, like round one. That makes sense.
yeah,
Hmm.
I'm not into it. It's not my happy place card. So I think we just disagree
Yeah.
on this one. I'm sorry.
Yeah. I mean, no, that's fine. I don't necessarily like love the card, but I think I'm generally happy with the 2 and 2, and I think the comparison is it goes back to the talents from the core set.
Hmm.
The level 2 talents that you find in the return 2 box for that have double icons, and I found that those talents are actually pretty good because if I don't have the time to play them, I just commit them to a skill test, and I get like a reasonable amount of the benefit that I would have gotten otherwise, and like I know it seems like, well, you could have just had, your guts or whatever in here, and then you could have gotten a card out of it. It's like, yeah, but generally each investigator is relying, at least how I play them, I generally rely on like 2 stats. So if the skill card matches the 2 stats I'm using, then even getting so much as 2 of either one is going to be useful to me, because I'm going to need that, and I'm going to be in that situation where I'm like, okay, yes, like here's keeping my stats buffed without having to spend resources or actions. So I usually have a soft spot for skills for that reason. I don't think it's like a perfect card, and I do agree that like as the scenario goes on, it's less good because you're taking hits. But your Guardian, you can also like play stuff to soak if you really want to make sure this stays buffed.
Sure, I guess that's fair. I guess the other thing that I think I talked about last time we just talked about this card was I kind of treat my health and sanity as resources that I can spend. So like it's
yes, that's right.
And this punishes me for spending those resources by becoming worse. So yeah,
or it encourages you to play differently.
I'm not sold on it. But it's fine. Yeah.
That's fair.
Ace of Swords.
No more contrarian for me.
Ace of Swords, then. Yeah, it's a 3-cost tarot asset, but wait, sometimes, if you have it in your opening hand, you can put it into play without... It doesn't say it here, without paying its cost, though. Yeah, and it gives you +1 fist. It takes up the tarot slot, which is a new slot they invented for this campaign only.
Yep. This is a good card, though, right?
Yeah, I like this one. I think this is one that I would actually play even if I don't get it. I wouldn't like hard mulligan for this, because I would put a +1 fist in a slot that Guardians don't care about, and I'd pay 3 for that and an action for that. So yeah, I think I'm just happy with this card. I like getting more combat in my Guardians.
Yeah, because Guardian combat boosts are typically tied to their weapons. I mean, you can sometimes get one from an ally, but that's like it. They don't get it from their accessory slot items. They don't really get it from their body slot items. They don't really get it through any other method. So having one that's just to help you keep your combat buffed is really good. I think it's great for someone like Sister Mary if you're leaning into her fist. Someone with like a weak combat stat, you can use that, and then like beat cop and then your sword or whatever, and you can kind of finally get into a safety range. So yeah, I think it's a pretty good card.
Yep. I don't really have too much to say to it besides like it's good to pump combat when you're blue.
Yeah, we'll talk more about the tarots and compare as we go along, I think.
Yeah.
Should we take a look at the secret cards?
Let's do it. All right, so secret cards, we have you actually.
I got this one.
You got this one, yeah.
Yeah. I got this. So we have Fingerprint Kit, Connect the Dots, Curiosity, and Death 13. So Fingerprint Kit is a 4-cost asset. It's item and tool traded. It has an intellect icon, and it uses 3 supplies. As an action, you exhaust the Fingerprint Kit. You spend a supply to investigate, and you get +1 intellect. And if you succeed, you discover 1 additional clue. So, yeah, I like this card. I think it's simple and straightforward, and it gets the job done. Pretty powerful. You hate this one, though, don't you?
I don't like it.
I'm going to play a guessing game about that if you like it.
Yeah, now that you know all the answers. Or it's like if you remember the answers, right? Yeah, I don't like this card. It costs a lot. And the part that's actually boring. Not on this slide is that it takes up a hand slot.
That's
and
right.
It exhausts, which is like, I think actually, the more I think about this card, the more I'm like, that's actually my biggest problem with it, is it's not repeatable throughout the turn. I've had a lot of instances in playing this card where my flex, or like in 3-player, or 2-player a couple times, honestly, just someone picked up a clue from my location, even though I had the Fingerprint Kit. Now there was only 1 left on my location, and now I don't actually have that passive book boost to get that last clue very easily. Like, it's just a little bit like, if I'm going like 5 to 4, if I'm like Daisy and I'm going like on a 4-shroud location, this would get me 6 to 4, which is 2 up, which feels pretty comfortable, and I get 2 clues for it. But I don't want to waste that if there's only 1 clue left at that location. So now I have to do a 5 to 4 test, or just tell my flex who got the clue for free or whatever, don't do that.
Yes.
And I don't know. This game's kind of hard. I don't like wasting value on cards, and there's so many times when the Fingerprint Kit has felt like, oh, I'm just wasting value. And it's like,
good.
It's not the same as like something like Rite of Seeking, where in Mystic, like, sometimes I'll still spend the charges just because I also get to use my willpower instead of my book. I don't know.
Yeah, okay, so I definitely that's definitely disparity in how we play because I will never spend a charge just so that I can use a book. Like I only spend it if I'm getting the 2 clues benefit out of it.
Mm-hmm.
And the Rite of Seeking, I know a lot of people really love Rite of Seeking, but I very rarely take that card because I always pull the symbol token and it always cancels out my entire turn. I obviously play it in which I use it as my last action, but there are those situations where it's really not great to do it that way. And so if I have a way to like cancel a token, then okay, maybe I can do that. But I'm kind of like I have to like work with the card a little bit, which is actually a good thing because it makes the card more interesting to play. And I will say that Fingerprint Kit is very boring. It's
that is its biggest thing,
mundane and straightforward.
It's boring.
Yeah, that is the biggest crime, I think.
Yeah.
But I do think I like it much better than lock picks is a big fan favorite. But man, even in playing a 2-player game using lock picks, I kind of hate that card because it only gets me 1 clue, and I need more than that. I always need more. And this, I mean, yeah, it exhausts, but I get 2. Like, did I really need to get more than that on the location? If it's a 2-player game and the location spawns with 2 clues, then it's like, okay, I either get all the clues or half the clues. If it's a 3-player game, then there's going to be an odd clue left over anyways. Mm-hmm. So, like, I get what you're saying, like, and I think I agree with what you're talking about. I just also don't think it's I don't think I would ever say that Fingerprint Kit is bad. I think it's potent at what it's trying to do. It's getting 3 deductions on tap.
I don't think it's bad.
Deduction is great.
I just don't like it.
Okay, fair enough. Let's talk about Connect the Dots then. So this is a 4-cost event. It's insight traded. It has 2 intellect icons, and it says fast. After you discover the last clue at your location, you discover 2 clues at a location with a lower printed shroud value than your location. I like this card, and you like this card, I think.
Yeah, I love this card.
Yeah, this card is cool. It's great.
Yeah. It's got 2 intellect icons if you don't want to do the effect on it or you don't have an opportunity to. And sometimes that's all I need.
Yep. But, I mean, even if... I would always try to play it if possible, but it is expensive, so that's like the one downside. But you're getting 2 clues. And you can strategically use this where you pick a 4-shroud location, and then you can pluck up 2 clues from a 3-shroud. And 3-shroud is nothing to scoff at. You can't just flashlight your way through it as easily.
Or you can get around
getting
like
2 out of the deal.
Yeah, you can get around like a locked door, or obscuring fog because it's printed shroud value. You can get around a lot of other things that you can't investigate here, or an area that's difficult to get to because there's a big bad there or something. Yeah, it's just there's a lot of utility kind of packed into those 2 sentences.
Yeah, and I appreciate that they put it in this box in a campaign with Haunted.
Yeah,
so that way you can get clues off of locations that are haunted without having to go there and suffer through those consequences, because sometimes you have to suffer the haunted consequence even if you get the clue or not. So
I don't know if I put this in my Mandy deck. I should have, but I don't think I did actually. So
there's still time to stop the key from turning.
Yeah, that's true. Ooh. Maybe I should go make that. I'm just gonna make some adjustments to my deck real quick. So you just read Curiosity.
Okay, so Curiosity. This is the Seeker's skill version. It's a willpower and intellect icons, and while you have 4 or more cards in your hand, Curiosity gains an extra icon of each. And then while you have 7 or more cards in your hand, it gains 2 extra icons of each. So this is for big hand deck. If you're not playing big hand, then it's mildly okay. You can generally be holding on to 4 cards, but I honestly would not recommend it unless you're doing big hand, because I have played this card in decks where I wasn't worried about big hand because under the same logic as last time where 2 and 2 is enough, and it often was like 1 and 1 if I was down on cards, because I don't really, I guess, keep cards in my hand all the time, or sometimes I can't because I get hit with some kind of treachery, because you really need like at least 5 cards, I think, right? Because it's while you have 4 more in your hand. But when you play that, it leaves your hand.
Yeah,
so,
exactly.
Yeah.
Do I like this card?
I think you like it better than Steadfast, but you still don't like it?
Wow, you're... Okay, yeah, it's like we recorded an episode where I talked about how I didn't like this card very much, but still more than Steadfast very recently. Yeah, no, I think it's one of those things, again, where it kind of punishes you for doing badly. and I like my cards to help
Mm-hmm.
me when I'm doing badly instead of the opposite of that. But I do think,
Yeah.
like, honestly, these symbols are more relevant. Um, and like I'm okay with losing like one book more than I am with losing one fist, because
That's fair.
fight tests are often more critical than investigation tests. That's not always true, but like kind of
Yeah.
is most of the
No,
time.
they are.
Um, so yeah, I think like I would play this one more when it was 2 and 2 than Steadfast, but I'd still be like,
Mm-hmm.
I kind of wish I could get the 3 and 3 more consistently. And then if I had 8 cards in my hand, I'd be like, well, do I really need curiosity? I guess because I have 7 other
Yeah,
cards in my
yeah,
hand.
exactly.
Yeah,
You have all these cards.
yeah,
Something must be helpful.
yeah, exactly. And if I don't, and like curiosity is like the solution to my problems, I'm a little bit like, well, how did I build this deck?
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's fine for what it is, but it doesn't really encourage a type of playstyle that I enjoy very much. I don't like
Yeah,
the big hand all that much. I mean, it's fun every now and then, but I just find it overwhelms me because I have too many cards to choose from, and I don't like having. I get overwhelmed, decision paralysis. So,
yeah,
yeah. So for the last one, the Death 13 tarot card, it's the same 3 cost 1 XP as the Guardian one, but this one gives you +1 intellect, and of course it goes into play for free if it's in your opening hand. I don't think this one's very good though because Seekers just don't need an intellect bonus. I mean, I guess if you want to be running more hand slot items like your fingerprint kit and your magnifying glass and you want something else, but I feel like your Daisy, you have 5 intellects and you have a mag glass or fingerprint kit, so it's not really that helpful. The only thing I really like about this is that it is an intellect icon boost, and most of their hand slot items are typically while you're investigating and
yeah.
under no other circumstances. And there are instances where you do need to make intellect tests and you need to be passing them. I think I'd probably play a skill over this, but I guess it's a nice option to have, especially because Seekers have ways of like drawing up a larger hand size.
Yeah, I think that's the only thing that it really has going for it is that like you can with certain cards get a larger opening hand, right? And then like it's easier to
Yeah,
find. Um, but I think
yeah.
I'd still. This is one that I kind of value the least. I think of the tarot card assets. Maybe not the least. No, I
Yeah.
should definitely not say the least. There's a couple I value less. But it's just like this one I think is very like middle of the road for me. I'm not super stoked about it.
Yep. Yeah, I'd be curious to see what you're putting in your hand slots. If you put this in your deck, I'm kind of like, okay, so what are you running? Because you might be doing something
Yeah.
newfangled, or maybe you're leaning into your off class or something like that, and that's
Yeah.
why this becomes a necessity.
This is maybe good for an off-class seeker, maybe Roland wants something like this just so he can be a little bit more
Yeah,
like of a generalist and have 4 book. But I think I'd still
that way he can
probably
carry like a shotgun or something like that.
yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
I don't know. I think I'd still probably just take the fist one. Maybe he takes both. Maybe he's like this scenario I'm gonna be Death 13. This scenario I'm gonna be I don't remember what the other one's called. The
Ace of Swords.
Ace of Swords. Thank you.
We will use the Ace of Swords to bring about the 13th death.
Yeah, yeah. All right.
All right, well, I don't have anything else to say on the secret cards. Let's talk about Mystics.
Mystics are next. I like this game where you try to remember if I like the cards, so let's keep that up.
Okay. Do you want to do the overview and then I will
Sure,
guess?
sure. Okay, so we have on this slide Deny Existence and Eldritch Inspiration, as well as the skill Prophesy, and the next tarot slot is Four of Cups. Deny Existence is a 0 cost event that is spell and paradox traded, commits for a wild icon, and has the text fast play when an encounter card would when an encounter card or enemy attack would cause you to do any of the following. Choose one. Discard cards from your hand, lose resources, lose actions, or take damage or horror. And then you ignore the effect of that thing.
Yeah. So we both love this card, if I remember right.
I like
What's
it.
not to love?
I like it. I don't think I
No.
love it.
Okay. It's great though. I mean, it's
Yeah.
pretty much. I mean, the obvious comparison is Ward of Protection because in most cases it blocks any of the consequences that you would have gotten from it, and it doesn't cost you a resource, and you don't have to take the horror like you do with Ward. There are some things it can't block, like Ancient Evils, so you're just gonna have to suffer the consequences when that rolls around. But, there's going to be plenty of instances where there's a treachery card that just says, like, discard cards from hand or take damage or horror, like your Rotting Remains or something like that. Yeah. And so this is just a nice, like, block for that.
Yeah, it's a good cancel. I think that's true, and if you're playing a deck that really wants to focus on canceling things, like a Diana deck or someone who's just like really into control, Deny Existence is a great card. I think I still generally take Ward of Protections or Mind Wipes over this card, because the things that it causes you to lose, cards, resources, damage, horror, actions, those aren't the things I'm necessarily as worried about in a scenario. I'm more worried about special effects that are like, hey, if this happens, like, you can't do this thing or something like that. Like a Dissonant Voices really kind of screws me up. Or in certain scenarios, there's certain effects that are just like, hey, if this happens, suddenly you can't move, and I can't stop that. And I would rather be able to cancel those treacheries or cancel those effects from attacks or whatever with Mind Wipe than I would just damage, horror, resources, or cards. Or actions. Actions are good, but... the other thing I will say is, like, when we eventually get to the level 5 version of Deny Existence, that's a great card. And Mystics are good at upgrading, so sometimes I throw this card in there, even though I'm not as hot on it, just to kind of upgrade into that higher level Deny Existence.
Gotcha. Yeah, that's fair. I find I don't have enough XP to get Deny Existence 5. I basically never get... level 5 cards are really hard to purchase because they're just so expensive.
Yeah.
It's generally better, I find, to just upgrade smaller cards. But, or like make those incremental adjustments, because I might not even see this one card that I've maxed out. But yes, they do have methods of getting there quicker. In Deny Existence, the upgraded version is really good.
Yeah.
But then there's also situations where, like, you're full on health and then you're taking damage, and so you could play this to heal damage, but you don't have any damage to heal.
Yeah.
But I suppose there's the potential for that, but that's pretty rare. I mean, it gives you more. It puts you in a position to let something bad happen that you want to happen, and then something bad you want to reverse. So like you said, a control deck, it's a very good card for, or a good inclusion for that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like Deny Existence a lot. I like taking it with Ward of Protection very often because it's just enough. Like, you just keep this buffer going of blocking things that are coming your way, so that way everything can run smoothly. Yeah, it's a great card.
Yep. All right, Eldritch Inspiration is next. This is a zero-cost event that commits for a willpower and an intellect, has the spell and spirit traits, and the text, fast play when you would resolve an effect on a mystic card that triggers when a skull, cultist, tablet, elder thing, or autofill symbol is revealed. Either cancel that effect or resolve it in additional time. Importantly, this has been tabooed to include non-elder sign symbol token. So.
Yeah. So it could work with Blessing Curse and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. Or Frost.
Yeah.
Not that any Mystic cards trigger off of Frost tokens being revealed, but there may be someday.
Yeah, exactly. If I remember right, you are lukewarm to positive on this card.
Yep. Lukewarm to positive. That's about where I'm at.
I'm lukewarm to negative.
Yeah. I think the things that I like about this card is that I like the symbol fishing archetype or the symbol avoidance archetype that are both in Mystic. I like trying to control a Chaos Bag. It's a lot of fun, and this is a good card to kind of help with that. Sometimes it's just preventing you from taking a horror on your Shriveling or preventing you from losing an action on your Rite of Seeking. Other times it's doing 5 damage with the Song of the Dead.
When is it ever doing
It's never happened to me yet, but maybe one day.
If you do that, then I will change my rating on this card.
You're just encouraging me to play Song of the Dead.
That would be rad.
Yeah.
Of course.
It's my new white whale. Okay. Yeah, I think it's an okay card. But yeah, it has a deck that it wants to play.
Yeah, I think it's... Yeah. It does. It's just very, like... I don't like the token fishing as much. I don't like having to be so dependent on, like, just the random chance of the bag. The Investigator I actually don't mind it with that much is Father Mateo, which is really weird because his is, like, the hardest token to find. But the whole thing about him is that you have this, it's kind of like Lucky, which I think this card is trying to be a little bit like, but it is different because with Father Mateo, the lucky effect is it's just in my hand, and I wait for the bad thing to happen, and then I do something about it. So with Father Mateo, if you never pull the auto fail, I would say that's a good run. But if you did pull the auto fail, you can just cancel the thing. You get a benefit out of it. You auto pass the test.
Wait.
So like that's a really potent effect, right?
You can do Father Mateo's card is a purple card. You're right. So you could cancel the auto fail and then resolve your star twice with this card.
I didn't even realize that. He is a purple card, though.
Wow. I don't know if that works, but that kind of is exciting if it does.
Huh. And it does include the autofail symbol.
Yeah.
All right, well, maybe this card does go over the stock. Because that sounds like fun.
That does sound like fun.
Take 2 actions.
Take 2 actions after drawing an autofill, and instead of drawing that autofill, you succeed instead. Wow. Yeah, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
If that works. I don't know if that works, but yeah.
I don't see why it wouldn't. I mean, it is a Mystic card that you control.
The only thing I can think is it does say limit once per game. But if you're triggering it again, yeah. I don't know what the timing situation is there. But you only get to do that effect once per game. But if you trigger it immediately, like during the when window, has it finished resolving? I don't know. Mm-hmm. I think it probably doesn't work, but if it does, that's really cool.
Yeah, it probably doesn't, but it should, because that's super rad. But yeah, I mean, the comparison I was trying to make was that, like, if I'm, doing, like, Song of the Dead or whatever, and I want to resolve that effect a second time, it's sort of like, I mean, that would be cool, but I kind of need to get the token in a moment of truth anyways. So even though this says when this situation comes up, it's still not really that, because it's just not going to really matter. I suppose if you're doing it with Rite of Seeking, that's a little better, because then you can comfortably use that at the very beginning of your turn, and then if the symbol shows up, you play this and you cancel. So yeah, I mean, it has its uses. It just feels like it's the cards it interacts with are super narrow, and so you have to figure out what those cards are in advance. And I can never really wrap my head around like which cards those are and which ones I want to like pair together. So
I don't think it's as narrow as you think it is. I think like most Mystic,
it's probably not.
Mystic assets do have, well, not most Mystic assets. Most Mystic spell assets. Well, actually, maybe even most. A lot of things in Mystic trigger off of revealing a symbol token, positively or negatively. So you can kind of slot this into a deck and probably still get use out of it, even if you're not necessarily building around it. I don't think that's necessarily the way you should play it, but yeah. It's also a Mystic card. It's not a Mystic asset, so you can use it off of things like, you can use it for things like Blinding Light, which I like, but a lot of people don't, to just prevent that.
I like Blinding Light.
Yeah.
It's good.
Or you can do it with things like Bind Monster to resolve it so that like your enemy doesn't ready a second time, I guess. I don't know if that works. I don't remember the text on Bind Monster, but there's other things.
That would be cool. If you could double Bind Monster, I think that would go up in stock, because that really locks them down for a while.
Yeah. I don't know if that would work, because I don't know if it can become, like, exhausting an enemy twice doesn't necessarily double exhaust it. But yeah, I don't know. Yeah, anyway, I think this is an interesting card. It's like one of those cards that gets your kind of gears turning a little bit, and yeah, I like it. I don't play with it enough, actually, I think, but that's okay.
You know what it is like, I keep confusing the card with like, what's the one? There's one that just it's like Defiance, where it just cancels, like nullifies the symbol tokens. I keep wanting it to do something as simple as that, but it's not. It's like, it's concerned with your cards, which is more of a secret thing, so it's like I have a hard time adjusting to like how I actually play it. I think that's really the issue. So I just need to throw it in more decks and take a chance, I think.
Yeah. I think it is like nice that you can throw it into most Mystic decks, and it'll do something, probably. And it doesn't cost anything. Mystic cards tend to be a little bit more expensive, so that's nice. Anyway, we've talked enough about this card. I'm lukewarm on it to good, and you're lukewarm on it to negative. I think that's a good place to end. So let's go to Prophesy. This is this sort of scaling skill for Mystics in this cycle, which has a wild icon, and while there are 3 or more Doom in play, it gains an additional wild icon. While there are 6 or more Doom in play, it gains 2 wild icons instead.
Yeah, so we both really like this card. This card's cool.
Yeah, this is a great card.
Most like
Yep.
agendas are generous enough. That's why I like it. So it doesn't. I don't feel like I even need to be playing a Doom deck for this to be helpful or valuable. But if you're playing a Doom deck, then it's even better.
Yeah, playing a Doom deck gives you a level of control over this, which is kind of cool.
Hmm.
And if you're not playing a Doom deck, you just have to wait a couple turns, and it's an unexpected courage. And if you wait a little longer, it's even better, and that's cool.
Yeah,
It
and I
also,
like that it could be any test.
yeah, and it does do that thing where it helps you more the more like dire straits you're in. Like if you do need to do
Yes.
something before the agenda advances, this is a great card.
Yeah.
All
Yeah.
right, that's
Good
it. That's
stuff.
all we got. Yeah. Okay. Last is the tarot in this for the Mystics, and it's Four of Cups, which has the same text as the other ones, except it gives you willpower.
I think you like this one. I think you like this one, right?
I love this one.
Yes.
It's a card that
Okay.
means I don't have to take the Holy Rosary, which, yeah,
Yes, exactly. And
that's
even if you did take it with Holy Rosary, more willpower is always good in Mystic, because Mystic is testing willpower to an excessive degree that Seeker is not necessarily doing with their intellect,
mhm.
because Mystic is using their willpower to investigate, to fight, to resist the Mythos deck. So they're just testing willpower, willpower, willpower all the time. So getting that stat into some healthy, like, like 6 is good, but if you can bump it all the way up to 8, then you just basically pass everything. So
Yeah.
yeah, why not?
And honestly, even if you're not doing the I test willpower for everything style of Mystic, this is a good card because it helps you resist the Mythos. Even if you're like
Hmm.
Daisy Walker or an off class Mystic, this is a good card because it
Yeah.
helps you resist the Mythos. Willpower is probably the most ubiquitously useful skill, I think, in this game. Besides, well, maybe intellect is more useful, but it's pretty useful to not
Well,
die.
ubiquitous meaning like, it covers a range of different territories, and I would say that's pretty reasonable
Yeah.
for willpower. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's at least an argument to be made for it.
Yeah. I think
Yeah.
willpower is
Good
pretty
card.
much always, yeah, it's pretty much always useful. If you can take this card, it's probably going to be good for you. It means you probably also can take Holy
And
Rosary, but
Mystics. Yeah, but Mystics also have other accessories that they're interested
yeah,
in that are
exactly.
really cool and don't necessarily give them willpower. So this gives you more options. So yeah, you can either lean into your willpower even more, or you can use it to replace a willpower boost and put something else in your deck to do something more novel.
Yeah.
Or like, if you're doing an Olive McBride as an ally, so you don't have, a willpower boosting ally. In fact, a lot of Mystic allies don't actually give you willpower.
There's only like
Same with
two.
like the Arcane Initiate.
There's like
Yeah,
two
so
Mystic
it's actually
allies.
pretty
Yeah.
good.
I do.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to get willpower unless you like are an off-class Guardian Mystic like Diana or
Yeah.
the other one,
Hmm.
uh, Lily, I guess.
Yeah, actually, Lily would probably like this.
Lily can't take this.
Wait a minute. Lily can't take this. Yeah, no, she has to get the Ace of Swords. That's what she likes.
Yeah, she likes
That's
the
right.
Ace of Swords, but she can get Brother Xavier, who gives you a willpower boost. So
Yes, she can. Brother Xavier is actually really good with Lily.
yeah, yeah. Anyway, this isn't a Brother Xavier card review. I
Okay,
think we both just like this
this is
card.
not
So,
Brother Xavier.
so let's. It could be. We could talk about Brother Xavier, but I think I don't know. We don't have a picture of him. Let's go ahead and move on
Yeah,
to
those
the
are on.
Survivor cards. Then I'm gonna let you do these ones.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So we got Track Shoes, Act of Desperation, Able Bodied, and Five of Pentacles. The Track Shoes is a 3-cost asset with an agility icon. It's item, clothing, and footwear traded. Ooh, hold on. It's really windy outside for some reason.
Hmm.
Um, it's limit 1 footwear per investigator. You get an agility icon boost, and then after you move, but before enemies engage you, at the new location, you can exhaust the track shoes and test agility 3, and if you succeed, you move to a connecting location. And this card is amazing, and both of us agree on that. I think.
Yeah,
I think it's even more amazing than you do, but yes.
I think it's fine. Yeah, I mean, like I don't play. I think I don't play as much Survivor as you, so I don't think I've seen the crazy things you can do with this firsthand as much. But I think
Yeah.
generally I'll throw if I have an open deck slot and I'm a Survivor, I'll throw track shoes in because it's probably going to be worth it at some point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, track shoes is also it's very good in solo because in solo you don't always have the luxury of dealing with enemies in the proper fashion. Sometimes the best course of action is to just get past them, get the clues, and continue to go about your business.
Yeah.
So it allows you to, move into a location, skip over them, and it gives you the agility boost. So you're going to pass the test much easier because it's giving you that bonus. And then you pass by the enemies, you get to the new location all in one motion,
Mm-hmm.
and then you can get a clue, or you can run further away, or whatever it is that you need to get done.
Yeah.
So yeah, it also helps you like evade the enemy at your location. So if you get bogged down, because this is that desperate situation you have to stay out of at all costs in solo, is that when you've got enemies all over you. So if you've got one on your location and one next to you, you can evade with the track shoes, and then you can move through that other location and run past them without having to deal with them. So it's just a really, really potent effect.
Yeah. The other thing I'll say, since it actually gives you a test that you have to, when you enter the location before enemies engage you, you can trigger fast actions while that test is going on. You have a lightning bolt window. So it actually lets you even be more efficient. So say there's something you have to do at that location with enemies in there, but you can do it fast. You can run in, do a fast thing, then succeed that test and run out.
You like working a hunch.
Yeah, exactly. You can working a hunch between running into the location. It's one of those things that I don't think I really valued until I got a lot more into the rules of this game, but it's nice that you can do that. It's nice that it gives you a test. If it didn't have that test and you're just exhausted to move to another thing, you have to pass the test to actually do the movement, but there's actually an opportunity there to mess with some stuff because there's a test there.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think it's slightly pricey, but I do think that the value is absolutely there. So you just need to figure out to make sure you have enough resources to pay for it because it will be worth its weight in gold. Even though it may not always seem that way, but trust me, it is.
Yep. Agility is also something that's generally pretty useful to have. Yeah.
Yes. Yeah, agility is. I mean, well, so I'm a big fan of the defensive stats, willpower and agility. I like them better than the other two, just because if you can use your willpower or your agility to get clues or satisfy other things, then it's like you're very defensive. And like if the situation gets really bad, you can at least evade the enemy, or you can at least withstand a willpower treachery, or you can get that, frozen in fear off of your character.
Yeah.
So the intellect and combat are they're nice, but they are, and they do advance the game, but I like the kind of defensive one because it just puts me in a better position to stay in the game and keep taking tests until I can get through it. Whereas if I didn't have those two, then it's well, if you pull an autofail or something, you're basically dead.
Yeah,
which is a scary thing.
Yeah. No,
okay.
I agree.
Active Desperation. So Active Desperation is a zero-cost event. It has 2 combat icons. It's tactic and gambit traded. As an additional cost to play Active Desperation, choose and discard an item asset that takes up at least 1 hand slot from your hand or play area, and then you fight and you get plus X combat and deal plus 1 damage for this attack, where X is the chosen asset's printed resource cost, and if you succeed and that asset was in your play area, you gain X resources. This is a nifty, funky card.
Yeah.
I think you like it more than me, right?
Yeah, I do. I think I do like this card more than you. The thing that I always forget about this card is how much text it has on it. It's not just discard an item asset and you get plus 1 damage and plus whatever combat for it. You can do it from your hand. It does have to take up a hand slot. There's a lot of other little things in there that I'm always I kind of forget about them because I'm just throw gun at man.
Yeah, exactly. Or throw your empty flashlight, whatever, and get 2 resources back.
Yeah, I like that it does have the opportunity for you to do it from your hand as well. That's something that's really nifty about it that I always forget I can do. I like that it has 2 combat icons in case I just need to help punch something, or I don't have any item assets to take up hand slots that I can use. Yeah. I like that it costs 0 and it gives you resources. I like that it's sneakily an economy card if you're in a bad situation. No, this is just a fun card for me.
Yeah, it's a fun card. I think I very rarely, if ever, played it though, just because if I play an item asset, it's typically when I want to keep and play. So the next time I'm playing like flashlights or things that expire, then this will definitely go up in stock.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right, able-bodied then. So this is the scaling skill. It's got a combat and agility icon this time, and it's while you control 2 or fewer item assets, it gets, one of each icon. And then while you control 1 or fewer item assets, it gives you 2 of each. I really like this one. You, I think, like it.
This is my favorite one.
Right?
Yeah.
Okay, this is your favorite one. Okay, so I was a little timid when I didn't need to be.
Yeah, I like this one even more than Prophesy, because I think generally if I don't have item assets, those are the skill points I need, and generally if I don't have my item assets, I'm behind. Like, it really rewards you in like a kind of interesting way for like falling a little bit behind, for like losing your assets, that I'm quite happy with. It took me a while to kind of warm up to this one, because it does, I think, on its surface look like, oh crap, how am I going to do this? But then I think I played like it in Silas or something like that, and I was just like, wait, if I only have like my one weapon out, I can just keep throwing this and then returning it if I don't need it. And it's so many boosts. Yeah. So many boosts. Like the 3 combat and the 3 agility, those are like, and I think those are the tests that you really want to make sure you pass, right? I think to some extent, like, willpower is in that same boat, but like desperate times usually are like, I need to pass this fist test or I need to evade this enemy.
Yeah, willpower you want to pass to prevent yourself from getting into a bad situation, but combat and especially agility are what you use to get out of that bad situation. I also really like that you can have at least 1 item in play. It's not 0, because 0 would just, I think, ruin the fun of it. So 1 item simply means, you can look at your deck, and I usually, if I'm using this card, or like I build the deck and then I look at it and go, hey, I only have 1 item. Like, that's all I'm ever going to have in play for whatever reason. So now it's really easy to throw this card in, and it'll always have the 3 icons, which is really cool.
Yep.
So yeah, I like this one a lot too. Cool card. All right, 5 of Pentacles. This is the Survivor Tarot, and the only difference here is that it gets you +1 health and +1 sanity, which I think you think is this is one of the worst. This is your second worst one, in your opinion, if that's right.
I think it was.
But I'm a little more positive on it.
Yeah, I think you kind of talked me into it the last time I recorded this video, because I started to see more places where it could be viable. I think we brought up, besides Kelvin, which is, I think, the obvious person, we brought up Agnes as well, who could take an additional horror and turn that into additional damage. We brought up a couple others that I can't remember.
We said Ashcan was interesting, just in case, because like his health and sanity are split, so sometimes it's helpful to get him a little buffer to make sure you have more to disperse.
Yeah. And I think like the interesting thing about this too is that it is in Survivor, and like you can, like, if you can find a way to discard it, if you don't need it, you can recur it as well. Which I think makes it a little bit more powerful. Like, if you have I think this is why we brought up Ashcan last time, actually, was like, you can feed it to Duke if you don't think you're going to need it. And then, oh no, Duke's dead, you're on your last legs, you can resourceful it back into your hand or something like that. I don't know. I'm kind of... it's growing on me a little bit. I don't think I've actually ever played with it outside of Calvin, so I'd be interested in trying that. Because I think like my evaluation of it was always like, well, what if I lose it and I'm down to the wire? Do I just die? But I'm less afraid of dying now. I've done it a lot more. It's not that bad.
I've experienced death more often, so it does not frighten me anymore.
Yeah, and like I think like the thing with that evaluation of it is like, you would have died anyway, potentially. Like, you would already be dead if you didn't have this. So it's a little bit, I mean, it could have been a better card, I guess, but I don't know.
Right.
Sometimes this is worth paying the 3 for. Yeah. I don't know. I'm coming around on it.
Yeah, I think it's worth trying. I think it has a place. It's just a really fascinating card because it gives the pool to you as opposed to making it an asset you play to soak. Because almost always that's the route we go. You know, cherished keepsakes, your leather coats, your allies. You put all that stuff down to soak damage and horror.
Mm-hmm.
But this is like one of those rare instances where it actually gives you more health and sanity. So it gives it to your investigator card specifically, which then opens up a few new interesting options.
Yeah.
And then for all the reason that it's Survivor, like it is best in Survivor because they have ways to recur it, they have ways to discard it so that it doesn't go to waste. Yeah, so it's a very interesting card. I mean, you throw it through cornered, and I guess these are kind of excuses because you could do that with any Survivor card, but it's just sort of like a reminder that when you get a bad Survivor card or quote unquote bad one, it's probably not that bad because you can usually find a way to leverage it.
Yeah.
Like you could put it in Wendy and just use it for her ability if you don't need it, but otherwise it gives you more sanity to resist her weakness, which pegs you for 2 horror just at a random time. So if you failed at Rotting Remains, which you shouldn't do because you could just redraw it with this card, but you can see where it's like, oh, okay, I put the card specifically in my deck to help resist this particular effect.
Yeah.
And then it doesn't matter if you play it or not because you're going to have a way to utilize it so that it gives you the benefit that you're trying to get out of it. So it doesn't feel like a waste.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah. Weird but cool card.
Yeah, I think I want to try it more. So I'm glad it's in our pool now. Maybe I'll play it eventually.
Same. Yeah.
All right, let's go ahead and move on to our rogues, which is not our last slide because there are some neutral cards. But yeah, in this slide we have the well-connected asset. We have Money Talks, which is the event version of well-connected, sort of. We have Cunning, which is the skill version of well-connected, sort of. And we have the Moon, which is a tarot that does nothing to well-connected. So starting with well-connected, it's a 2-cost condition asset that commits for a intellect. It's limit 1 per investigator and has the text fast, exhaust, well-connected. You get +1 skill value for this skill test for every 5 resources you have.
Yeah, so I remember you were talking up this card quite a bit, and I'm definitely more open-minded to try it now in the future. Getting to 10 resources is just such a Herculean task, though, but that's mostly because I've never really committed to doing a true big money deck, and anytime I did try to do something similar, I didn't feel like I had enough cards to really support it, so it wasn't really worth it. So yeah, maybe I'll give it another try and see how it performs, because I feel like what it says seems like it should facilitate that deck very well.
Yeah, it's a good card. It's definitely something that I feel like is one of those things where you play it once or twice and you're like, okay, I felt this power. I don't need to necessarily do it again. But that's maybe just my kind of like, that's kind of how I feel about green cards, I guess, in general. So I don't know. I like it. It's a fun card to play with. It lets you actually do stuff as a rogue, which is like consistently do stuff as a rogue instead of kind of just explosively do stuff as a rogue, which is cool. And yeah, there's plenty of ways to get money in this class now, and it's neat.
Yeah, it's a cool card.
Yeah,
I'm curious to try it now that I have a different kind of more open-minded perspective to how it's useful. Because I mean, it can give you just the +1 if you only have 5, but it can give you, on average, even if you just are holding on to 10. I think you were saying this before, like as long as you have 10, you're getting +2 out of it, which is pretty standard.
Yeah.
So, and like when you're doing a big money deck, 10, I think resources is like the minimum you want to be having anyways, because that's what a lot of them scale off of, like Cunning, for example, which we'll get to.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's probably pretty good.
Yep. I think it's a pretty good card. I think it's. I'm not going to admonish you if you don't like it very much. Like, that's fine.
I shouldn't judge because I haven't really played it. You know.
Yeah. And then we have Money Talks next, which is basically just the event version of this. It's 0 cost, so you don't actually have to spend money to play it. It doesn't commit for anything. It's favorite in Gambit traded, and it's fast play when you initiate a skill test. Instead of the skill type indicated for this test, which is willpower, intellect, combat, or agility, this is a resource skill test. Your base skill value for this test is equal to half the number of resources you have, rounded down. So if you have 10 money, you're basically just testing at a value of 5.
5. Yeah. Which is obviously makes it a Preston card. I don't think you like this one as much as Well Connected.
Yeah, it's just kind of not as good. I like that it's free, I guess. I like that it doesn't cost you any money, and it's kind of... and it's a little less permanent, right? Like, so you don't have to be doing like I'm big money. You can be saving your money, and then when a really important test comes up, you can be like money talks, and you can spend your money, which is kind of a nice flexibility this card has. I think often though that just doesn't really land.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Yeah,
because it's too much money that you would need in order to justify it. Unless, of course, you're trying to do, like, let's say you've got, 8 money, and then you're having to do a willpower test as Finn. So then maybe this goes up in stock because it's essentially giving you +3 to that test.
Yeah, and it is free,
which is like not terrible.
Like, yeah,
and it's free.
It's kind of, it's a little too conditional, and it's one of those things too where it rewards you for doing well and not for doing. It doesn't help you when you're doing poorly.
Yeah.
And I think that's all of these cards, honestly, on this page, and maybe Rogue in a nutshell. But I think like
yeah, right.
I don't know. This one just doesn't really vibe with me, and you don't because you don't really get that like I'm really powerful. I have so much money, and I can do everything with this card. You just do one thing with it. I think well connected, what it lets you do, and even to some extent, cunning is it's like I'm super powerful with my money. Hooray!
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, there's totally a theme disconnect with this card too, because it's money talks, and you look at the picture, and he's like handing, someone some money to like with the handshakes. That way, he does something for him. But you don't spend any money when you play this card.
Yeah.
You just show your money. You're like, look at all this money I have, and then that makes them do something.
Yeah.
Something happens as a result.
Yeah, I'm not
like maybe it should just let you pay like the difficulty of the test, and then you're good.
Yeah, I think that would be a more interesting niche for this card. But I think it would be much.
But
more
I feel
powerful.
like that card can never exist now because that card would have to be called Money Talks, because that would actually be money.
I mean,
talks.
it could just be like a bribe or something. I don't know. Also, but yeah.
Oh yeah. Mm-hmm.
Anyway, yeah, this isn't. I think it's not a great card. I think it's maybe fine, and I wish it had an icon. Like that's the thing. I think I'm like. I don't know, like a wild icon or something like that, just so you could do more with it, but it's fine.
Yeah, I mean, this card has the potential to make you test worse.
Well, then just don't play it, but yeah.
Yeah, which we'd never do. But I'm just saying, like, it's funny that the way that it's worded, it's like, if you would like to test it worse, you could. I mean, if you wanted to fail, like, maybe you're Ash can or Wendy, and you have a reason why you want to fail.
That's true.
I suppose you could use this and make that happen. I don't know.
Stella.
I don't really know.
There's
probably a scenario though, knowing survivors.
Yeah, I'm not sold on it, but that's okay. Let's move on to cunning, which is the skill for this set for rogues, which is commits for an intellect and an agility. Well, you have 5 or more resources, it commits for an additional one, and if you have 10 or more resources, it commits for 2 additional instead.
This is a great card. We both love this one.
No, I don't like this one.
Oh, I thought you liked this one.
No, I don't. I mean, like, I'm not super angry about it, but I don't really like it.
Oh, huh. I like this one. I play this one actually quite a bit, even when I'm not running big money, and it does pretty well.
Yeah, I think, like...
Because...
I don't know. It's not, like... I don't think it's bad. I don't think I dislike it quite as much as Steadfast or even the Seeker one, Curiosity. Like, I play it more because I think having intellect and rogue is very valuable, and I think foot is probably the most like when you need to have a symbol, it's often agility. So the symbols are good. It just is again like I think it's a little bit. I don't know. It's fine. I think it's very middle of the road for me.
Yeah. I mean, I like that you can. So put it this way, if you're trying to, let's say you're saving up to play this asset that's really expensive, you're trying to get it on the table, and then an enemy engages you. Oh no, there's an enemy, I can't play my gun or whatever.
Yeah.
But you don't need to, because you can use cunning now and just evade them because you have all the money. So then you evade them, and then you can play your asset, and then you can do things. So I like how it kind of becomes this nice recovery option. And then I also just like it for plucking up that odd clue. I guess, like, to me, there's a measurable way to get this card to be more potent. So if I'm looking at the board state, I'm like, shoot, I'm at 7 resources. It's like, well, I could just get 3 more using my economy method, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And then I'll have what I need, and then I can play this. I get the 3 icons, I get the clue, sometimes I have to wait like a turn, I guess, before I can use it. But you have it in your hand and you start seeing the situation crop up and you're like, okay, I could probably snipe that clue next turn or whatever.
Yeah.
And if an enemy pops up, then again you just use it to solve that problem instead. So I really like this one just because it feels like it's gonna keep. It doesn't seem to like the moment will be there and you can find places to use it, and then if the moment gets taken from you can still use it, as opposed to some of the others where it's like, well, I've taken a ton of damage because I drew an auto fail, so now steadfast is useless, whereas like this, I feel like you're trying to get money. You want a high economy as rogue, so it's not going to be that often that it's not giving you what you need.
And I think like contrasting that with the curiosity and seeker, like sometimes like it's always kind of good to have money that's just kind of a blanket statement for rogue. Whereas like the thing with curiosity is like if you have that many cards, you probably have already gotten past like the potency of curiosity most of the time.
Right.
Whereas this one is like just a way to turn like something that you should be kind of passively doing as rogue, which is accruing, some money so you can have these big splashy things happen. Yeah. And like if you put it off a little bit, like you're in a better position. Like if you put it off until you have 10 resources so you can fulfill that, you're in a good position. Whereas I think with curiosity, if you put off playing it until you have 8 cards in hand, sometimes
that's not good.
You sometimes need to play those cards.
Right. Yeah, you need something on the table to be doing stuff. Whereas rogue, I totally see that. That makes sense.
Yeah, I still don't think it's like it's not as exciting for me, just because I prefer my skills to kind of be like, this is something I can do to get out of an emergency or do something that I can't typically do. But it's still good.
That's fair.
Yeah, I still play it a lot more than
I do actually.
Steadfast.
Yeah, I play it decently often. I really like the theme too for this one, which I guess doesn't super matter, but like it's intellect and agility, and like cunning feels like the perfect association with those two stats, and like the art kind of facilitates that. So it's a good thematic win, and that can sometimes put you in my deck on occasion.
Honestly, yeah. All right, last on this slide we have the moon. I think it's 18. Yeah, which is the same as all the other ones, except instead of a different stat, it gives you an additional agility.
I don't remember if you like this card or not.
I'm pretty middle of the road on this one. Yeah, this is I think middle of the road. Okay. Middle for me. I think I might like it more than Death 13 in the right deck, but sometimes I just won't like it more than Death 13.
Yeah, I think figuring out the deck is hard. Yeah.
I like it. I do like it more than the 5 of Pentacles. But I think I do like 4 of Cups.
I don't know who wants this.
Ace of Swords more. Yeah, I think that's the other thing. Like I don't know. Rogues do agility things, and they do get rewarded for succeeding by more. So I guess it's this weird thing of like this is trying to appeal to I think every rogue, and in doing so not really appealing to anyone in particular. And as the card pool continues to get larger, those more generally like acceptable cards get pushed out for more specifically good cards.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's because rogues like to spike their tests to get the succeed by 2 or whatever, and this helps you get there sort of, but the passive bonus doesn't really help you get there. A card like Cunning or Money Talks or whatever, some of these other ones are going to spike your test, and that's what you're more interested in as a rogue.
Yeah.
I think this card has a little bit more appeal to me personally because I don't really play rogues in the risky way that they want to be played. I like to play safe and straightforward. I'm a cautious player. So for me, just getting a passive bonus is appealing because I'm like, I just want to be able to pass my evade tests and not have to worry about that aspect of my character. So that makes sense, but like I don't know if other rogue players would find that very appealing because it's like I don't need 1. I need like all the time. I need like spikes here and there, like periodically throughout, and then getting bonuses off of that. Like someone like Winifred, I don't think she'd be interested in this at all because she just wants to commit cards and get stuff out of it. But I suppose like maybe like kids might like it a little bit because he generally needs a little bit of a buffer, and then he needs to invest in like getting money and like getting his combat up. So it's possible that maybe Skids is more interested in something like this.
But, I don't know. Yeah, this is a weird card that I'm not. Yeah, I think like I can see a case for it in pretty much any deck that can take it, but I also can see better cards for any of those decks than it. So it's a little bit it's a weird one.
It's not too hard to get your agility bonus off of your ally, like Delilah Rook or
even something Cat Burglar.
Lola Santiago. So yeah, Cat Burglar, right. So it's also like I kind of question that as well. Like how much agility do you need before it's too much? And this is I think like where I think it almost I could see it being a survivor card, but obviously the health and sanity bonus is not something that rogues would have access to, so they had to swap.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's this is a mystery for me. I don't know where this one falls. I think yeah. I'm not going to try and evaluate it anymore. I don't know how I feel about this one at all.
Yeah.
So that's 2 in a row. I'm not sure.
You want me to handle the neutral cards then?
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay. So we have the Ace of Rods. So this is and the Tower and the 13th Vision, so with some weaknesses. But starting with Ace of Rods, this is the neutral tarot, and once it goes into play for free, I'm assuming you draw it in your opening hand, then you can free trigger during your turn, you remove it from the game, and then you may take an additional action this turn, during which you get +2 to each of your skills. And this card is garbage, I think.
Yeah.
And that's what you think. I don't think anybody likes this card.
I feel like you could maybe do something like, okay, so the fun fact about this card that I think I said in the last video, and I want to share it again, is this is technically one of the only non-myriad cards you can get 3 copies of. Because if you put... If you take In the Thick of It to take Trauma, to get 2 of these in your starting deck, you can then accept your fate in Circle Undone and get another one. So...
Right. And then when you do that, now you need to play... What's her name? The ally that lets you hold more tarot slots. And then you need to draw all 3, or at least 2 of the Ace of Rods and her in your opening hand. You put them in play. Then you get to pull up the next one from your deck. I believe that's what she lets you do.
Yeah,
and then you've got 3 Ace of Rods in play. So you could take 3 additional actions during which all of 3 of them you get +2 to all of your stats. And then you want to do things like Spectral Razor with those actions, because that will give you +4 because it's boosting 2 stats.
It's amazing.
Yeah, so it's amazing.
No. What's amazing is that we've gotten to a place in this game where we can even justify the inclusion of Ace of Rods. So like it can actually be there's an ideal situation for this card, which is cool.
Yes.
I don't think this is a good card though.
No, it's terrible because it's so much work to do that. Like this is an impossible scenario that will like basically never happen, or is just so not worth it in any way.
I think this card should have been a story card instead of an actual player card that you could put into any deck. I think this should have just been like a card that you could take if you accepted your fate, basically.
Yeah. I could see that. I also think it's a card that could have, or like should have, I don't know, like the text needs to be reworded. I think maybe if it just gave you +2, like even if it just gave you +1 to all of your stats for the duration of your turn, that wouldn't be so bad, because then it's like, okay, I get +1 to all my stats this turn. That's useful for 3 resources.
Yeah.
You know, you could set that into place and then on a future turn do that. It's great for rogues because then you could benefit from taking more actions. Or it could have been like, you know, you get to take 2 additional actions and then there's no bonus, but then it's like, okay, I've got a lot of actions this turn.
Yeah. There's a way that this could have been.
Tries to give you like one good one.
Yeah.
No.
I don't know. And like sometimes that's important. Sometimes it's important to have like a moment of being like, I'm going to spike this test. We really need to pass this test. But it's just hard to wait for that moment with this card, especially if you accepted your fate and you got the next card, which is the Tower, because you don't want to have this in your hand.
Right, because this is another tarot, but it's a weakness. It costs 4 resources, and it says you cannot commit cards to skill tests while the Tower is in your hand. So, and then if you draw it in your opening hand, you cannot mulligan it. This weakness is really awful.
Yeah.
It's nasty.
It's a mean one.
It's so much. 4 resources? Like, jeez. And then you can't do any skill cards if you want to just ignore it. So that's not good. And then it's a whole action to play the thing. Or it'll be in your opening hand, taking up a deck slot in your opening hand, or a hand slot. So that just sucks. There's no like, well, I could do this, or well, I can compensate for this. It's like there's none of that. The only thing I could think of is that you'd have to be playing a deck that doesn't use skills at all. But it's not even just related to skills, it's any card.
Yeah.
So you also are playing a deck that doesn't want to commit just anything ever, which I feel like is really, really narrow. I feel like basically every deck is going to commit cards on occasion, no matter what the circumstances are. So yeah, this is a brutal weakness. This is not a fun, or not a friendly weakness at all.
Yeah, I agree. I don't like it. It's a weakness though, so I think like we should hate these. And I like that it's a weakness because I want to be uncomfy when I see my weakness, and this card definitely makes me uncomfy.
Agreed. Yeah, I'm not sure if it's fun to play yet because I've not used it. It spooks me out. I think it spooks me out more than almost any other weakness.
Doomed.
It's a really terrifying one, I think. Doomed. Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, that's obviously because I don't know what could be more terrifying than that.
Yeah.
All right, the 13th Vision. So this is another weakness. It's Revelation. You put the 13th Vision into play in your threat area, and investigators at your location fail ties during skill tests, and it's 2 actions to discard it. So it's basically just haunted but worse.
Or haunted but better sometimes. If you draw a Grasping Hands or what's the other one? The bad one, the horror one.
Rotting Remains.
Rotting Remains. Thank you. The bad one. This doesn't do anything because you tie, you still fail by 0, so it doesn't actually do anything. So that's kind of cool. I like that there is, like, the more I kind of get into the rules of this game, the more I start to appreciate the differences between these two. But yeah, basically it's haunted. I kind of wish they had a different way to discard it. Like, I don't know. I don't know what it is.
Just something so it's more different than haunted. I agree.
Yeah. Maybe.
And then
I don't know. I'm not going to try and do any design on the fly here.
I was going to say it could. The other downside, of course, is that it impacts other investigators, which is bad. And I do think you could argue that haunted affecting you hurts the other investigators because you're suffering and doing less good. But also, I just feel like realistically, this is just bad because the other investigators are not going to be aware that that's really on the table very much, and they're going to attempt their tests and forget that they're in a position to fail them.
I've had the opposite happen where people have been more willing to clear this weakness for me because they're like, it affects me and I need to be here. So it's kind of like one of those weird things. I don't know. I think like the more I play this weakness, the more I'm like, I prefer this to haunted. But yeah, I think
I probably do as well.
Yeah, it's interesting. It's a weird one.
I don't like that haunted really targets cards where you stack 2 skills because then you get -2 in that, so that's rough.
Yeah.
This one doesn't have that, so it's got a cap somewhere.
It is interesting that these two cards are so similar, 13th Vision and Haunted, but like we're able to see the distinctions the more we look at them, and be like, okay, this actually does kind of have enough because the mechanics of this game are so like broad that we can kind of see like, okay, there actually is still enough of a difference between these two cards. It's not just Haunted 2.
Yeah. It's amazing how just a few lines of text or even just like a single word can just fundamentally alter the effect of a mechanic in a game because you're using the language, and it just goes to show that language, specifically the English language, is so like, I don't want to say like non-committal, but it's not mathematics here. Like there's so much ambiguity as to like interpretive work that you have to do with it. That's not to branch us out into like philosophical constructs, but it is something that I wonder about whenever I see 2 cards in this game that are similar, because it's like they are similar, but then when you go through the text, it's like a lot of difference here.
Yeah.
And I think to kind of circle back to one of the earlier cards in this set, Delay the Inevitable, my problem with that one is maybe it has to do with the fact that it's a lot of extra text, but like the end effects of how it will be used and played, I think are very minimal.
Yeah.
Whereas like this one, like you're saying, there's actually lots of instances where this will be interacting with the game board in a very different way than Haunted will, which just makes it unique and interesting, even though on the principle of the matter, on paper, it's basically saying the same thing.
Yeah.
Or an equivalency.
Yeah, that's true.
Well,
all right. That's it. That's all the cards. We have no. There's no multi-class cards in this pack. That'll come later down the line. In this cycle, though, I guess we will have more slides later in the cycle. But yeah, those are all the cards in the Circle Undone Deluxe box. So I think at this point, if I have my calendar in my head correct, you have seen us play through the Prelude scenario, and next Tuesday we will be starting our actual run of Circle Undone with our Mandy and Amina decks.
Yay!
And we'll see how that goes. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. But until then,
stay out of danger.